say that it was unusual for him to be cleaning a closet is to understate the case dramatically. Only in the most extreme circumstances of love lost, botched, or mislaid did the nest-cleaning urge strike. At these times, the debris was past, become the most immediate casualty. Like a paleontologist gone mad, the strata of directionless existence was stripped from their resting places, examined, and more often than not discarded with varying degrees of vehemence. Letters, pictures, notes, phone numbers scribbled on matchbooks, a Q-tip covered in sparkle paint. Several years' worth of trinkets and stuff and nonsense, a chaotic release as elemental as elimination, layer by layer till the subjects became as remote as faintly remembered characters in last year's bestseller. At the bottom of the pile, a cloth-covered hardbound book, a diary covering a 4-week period in the last year of his marriage. Dave Sim's 1982 tour book, vintage memories and photos too. I'm flipping through the maps and notes, 25 cities visited by these two. Dave Sim's 1982 tour book. Wait, why is there a lengthy digression on Chris Claremont? Why are there pages and pages of wedding photos? I guess we'll see what Dave wants.
Okay, please hold for the 1982 tour book. Nyak, nyak, nyak. This is Thursday the 9th, and this, I just got the 28 pages yesterday. So, latest from Eddie, hi Dave, latest from Eddie is that the 82 tour book is winning again. So here's what's new on that front. The Maggie Thompson, quote, a talk with an aardvark, unquote, interview from Comics Fandom Forum was reprinted in the Dave Sim Conversations book. I had forgotten that. Don't know if reprinting it in whole or in part again is worth it. Just thought I'd mention that. It's almost all of this, as far as my perspective, is it's definitely going to be in part. There's just way too many pages to most of the interviews, and a lot of it is just retread stuff as far as the average Cerebus fan is concerned. Eddie found this article on the internet. 10 X-Men movie scenes taken straight from the comics by Richard Craig. Published June 28th, 2024. 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The X-Men movie franchise has adapted many iconic moments from the pages of X-Men comics. From, quote, Days of Future Past, unquote, to, quote, The Phoenix Saga, unquote. Many classic X-Men narratives have been adapted. These adaptations brought the dramatic events to life on screen, highlighting Jean's transition from a beloved team member to an entity of unimaginable power. And I guess there was just no way for Jean to be a beloved team member and an entity of unimaginable power. But let's not go there. The X-Men movies frequently took inspiration from the numerous X-Men titles released by Marvel, and in some cases adapted moments and scenes almost identically. The X-Men movie timeline is littered with references to the source material, neatly capturing many characters' motivations and origin stories. While many of these were altered to fit into the franchise's tone and overarching narrative, some scenes were taken directly from the pages of X-Men comics. The early X-Men movies attempted to foster a realistic appearance, toning down the typically vibrant costumes and characters. As such, very little from the first X-Men movie was lifted explicitly from the comics. However, as various Marvel movies became more prominent, a realistic tone was increasingly less important. As a result, many of the later X-Men movies contained direct references to the comics that inspired them, recreating specific panels and classic X-Men covers. Number 10, Stryker uses Xavier and Cerebro to kill all mutants times 2. X-Men United, 2003. Okay, well, looking at this, it occurred to me, okay, yeah, we're going to have a problem with this as well, assuming that we can do this, that the reproduction of the screen captures is going to require like a definite like digital abilities far beyond those of mortal men, which means we're probably talking about Sean Michael Robinson here, and I don't know if he would even look at it and say, no, there's only so much that you can do with a screen capture, and it's never going to look like it belongs in a book. It's going to look like a digitally manipulated screen capture, and I hadn't considered that because I'm definitely coming at this from the comics side of things. Okay, that's page 2. Page 3, yeah, looking at the bottom screen capture there, it's like even if you get the ideal comic art, which would be scans from Heritage Auctions, imaged by Heritage Auctions, as it says on all of their digital files. It's you're really talking about pushing the limits of digital capabilities, particularly when you're talking about, okay, you have to manipulate everything digitally, and then it has to also be printed 100% correctly, or it's like, well, okay, we pretty much wasted Sean Michael Robinson's time because the printer wasn't up to this. So Charles Xavier being manipulated into psychically attacking mutants was a chilling and pivotal moment in X2, X-Men United, using a custom-built Cerebro. William Stryker tricked Xavier into almost killing every mutant on Earth by focusing his psychic powers too hard. This scene was directly inspired by the 1982 graphic novel X-Men: God Loves, Man Kills, from which several aspects of X2, X-Men United were adapted. Moving on to page 5. Written by legendary X-Men writer Christopher Claremont, X-Men: God Loves, Man Kills depicted the X-Men facing William Stryker. In the comics, Stryker is a religious zealot rather than a military officer responsible for experimenting on mutants. Okay, see, yeah, there's a problem too that I didn't take into account. That it's if you're going to try and show comic art of a religious zealot, and in the movie he's a military officer, that even if you find the perfect scene in the comics and the perfect scene in the movie, that's still going to look very strange on the page for anyone who hasn't completely memorized every inch of every X-Men movie. Stryker forced Xavier to use a duplicate Cerebro, in his, I'll take your word for it. I don't even know what a cerebro is. Um, Causing excruciating pain to nearby mutants who clutched their heads in agony. The scene was a potent reminder of Xavier's impressive powers, which X2 accurately adapted to great effect. Okay, again, I'll take your word for it. I don't know how we're going to distill that down into one or two images. Wolverine's, quote, fastball special, unquote, is a famous maneuver frequently performed throughout X-Men comics. It features a stronger ally hurling the fearsome hero through the air at an enemy. It made a thrilling live-action debut in X-Men The Last Stand during the memorable opening scene. While training in the X-Men's Danger Room, Wolverine asked Colossus to throw him at an inbound Sentinel. While certainly a common occurrence in the comics, this rendition is particularly reminiscent of Uncanny X-Men number 142. Okay, see, I knew nothing about that, and it's we're definitely how do you make that not ridiculous on the page? I'm saying I'm looking at it. I'm going like, okay, Wolverine tells somebody to throw him at somebody, and this happened a lot in the comics. Okay, moving on to page 7. Uncanny X-Men number 142 featured the second half of the famed, quote, Days of Future Past, unquote, story. In the post-apocalyptic future, Colossus launches Wolverine at an attacking Sentinel. Like X-Men The Last Stand, Colossus and Wolverine were joined by Storm, who looked on helplessly. However, unlike in the movie, this caused the future variant of Wolverine to be disintegrated. No. Nevertheless, the fastball special is an iconic Wolverine tactic that was celebrated in this scene. Okay, and then Matt, you say 8-7. So you're talking about page 8 and page 7 of your notes, I assume, aren't from Claremont Comics, so I'm leaving them out. Or is this the point by point? Well, we'll just keep reading and see if we can figure it out from there. Number 6, Mystique's assassination attempt, X-Men Days of Future Past, 2014. Okay, and this is Mystique. This is the lady with the blue skin and the red hair. I'm going to think that we're safe in saying that. Mystique's attempt to assassinate Bolivar Trask in X-Men Days of Future Past was rooted in the Uncanny X-Men storyline of the same name. In the movie, Mystique's assassination attempt is crucial to the plot, instigating the dire future which Wolverine is sent back in time to prevent. Oh, okay, it's a time travel story. Okay, with time travel paradoxes, presumably. Mystique's mission stemmed from her belief that Trask's death would prevent his Sentinel program from annihilating mutant kind. Well, it's a belief, I guess. In contrast, in the comic, quote, Days of Future Past, unquote, Senator Robert Kelly was Mystique's target, and her identity as the would-be assassin was hidden until a dramatic midway cliffhanger. This delayed reveal added tension and complexity to the narrative. and and to the 1982 tour book. How are you going to explain this in just a couple of images? Here's a lady with blue skin and red hair, and here's a comic page scanned from Heritage Auctions of what? This delayed reveal added tension and complexity to the narrative as the X-Men raced against time to prevent an unknown assassin and the catastrophic consequences. The movie adaptation, while altering some details, faithfully captured the essence of the original storylines, stakes, and urgency. Now, that sounds like a good thing. 5-3. Oh, 5-3 aren't Claremont. 4 is BWS's Weapon X, but I'm not including the pictures because it's about a 3-minute Wolverine cameo in X-Men Apocalypse. If that's the hook you're hanging this sequence of the 82 tour book on, I don't think it'll work. Matt. Okay. I'll take your word for it, Matt. If there's any dissenters out there who says, "Oh no, I think you can make that work if you took this screen capture from this point in the movie and matched it up with this panel from the comic book." 2, Jean Grey is possessed by the Phoenix Force Dark Phoenix 2019. Okay, I looked at this page and I went, I think if we had something like that, I mean, just going on a case by case with the screen capture at the top and the screen capture at the bottom, it's, Hollywood special effects out the wazoo. So that would be a plus because it would be it doesn't have to really be accurate. It would probably be one of those things that a school child could digitally manipulate, and you just go, oh, it's from a Hollywood blockbuster. Oh, looks like it's from a Marvel X-Men movie. Same thing with the next page, with the two screen captures. Again, there's nothing real to compare them to, so you probably just pull those, drop them in. Then the problem is just finding whatever the middle panel is that we have on page 10 here, which is from a John Byrne page. It's hard to tell, but again, this would be a very forgiving sequence because there's nothing really real to compare any of it to. So that's what I got to say about that. The scene where Jean Grey was first possessed by the Phoenix Force in the divisive Dark Phoenix. The divisive Dark Phoenix, okay, closely mirrored the event as originally depicted in Uncanny X-Men number 124. In Dark Phoenix, the X-Men team was on a mission in a space shuttle when they encountered cosmic energy swirling around the craft. Okay, yeah, that's what we're looking at there. I'm willing to bet on that one. This energy was later revealed to be the Phoenix Force, which ultimately bonded with Jean Grey, instigating her transformation into the deadly Dark Phoenix. In the comic, Jean sacrifices herself to save her teammates, only to be possessed/replaced by the Phoenix in the final panel. Oh ho! This panel boasts psychedelic cosmic colors comparable to the Dark Phoenix rendition. This faithful adaptation of the scene, the Dark Phoenix saga, brought the dramatic and transformative event to life on screen, dramatically highlighting Jean's transition from a beloved team member to an entity of unimaginable power. And as we have already established, those two are mutually exclusive. Okay, see, that wouldn't work with what I'm picturing in my head. In terms of I would want all of the comic images, comic panels, or 2 panels if it's like a 1-2 thing from a specific comic book, to be sourced from the original artwork, not from printed copies, because printed copies of comic books always look like crap, especially when they're just being scanned to be slapped into a book that's mostly text, which is what we're doing. Number 1, Professor Xavier walks Dark Phoenix. Okay, yeah, I read this section a couple of different times. And it's like, right, it is something that happened in the comic books, but it doesn't look remotely like it did in the comic books, which means it's not going to work for our purposes. Even assuming that the comic image that you got here on page 12, you could find the original artwork for that, or a scan of the original artwork of that, and juxtapose it. It's like, juxtapose it with what? It's a very, very strong image, the middle image of Dark Phoenix on page 13. The Professor Xavier screen captures are less striking and less useful. And right there, you're already talking about like 3 or 4 reasonably unsolvable problems. A haunting scene in Dark Phoenix depicted Jean Grey wielding her incredible powers, forcing Charles Xavier to walk. This moment was profoundly powerful, demonstrating her newfound immense and frightening abilities. As Jean manipulated Xavier's body, lifting him from his wheelchair and making him walk up the stairs, he finally comprehended the extent of her transformation and the loss of her moral boundaries. I'm not getting that one. I did get to that, the top of page 14, and I'm going, okay, she takes a man who's in a wheelchair and basically heals him. Like, she's forcing Charles Xavier to walk, but I don't know that you would use the term forcing if you were talking about someone being healed, so that they couldn't walk and now they can walk, and the loss of her moral boundaries. Call me unimaginative. I don't see where moral boundaries enter into that. This scene echoed a significant moment from Uncanny X-Men number 100, where a version of Xavier who could walk orchestrated a conflict between 2 generations of X-Men. This occurred just before Jean Grey's transformation into the Phoenix, symbolizing a dramatic shift and foreshadowing impending chaos. I'll take your word for it. Although the circumstances differ, both scenes use the image of Xavier walking to signify a profound and unsettling change. Yeah, I suppose, if you were showing that and you've got the right kind of dum 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 kind of music that you could it's oh God, she's losing her moral boundaries. Um, Xavier Walking underscored the disruption to the perceived natural order, serving a comparable function in the X-Men movie. Mm, Again, I'm not really seeing like natural order in this. I guess I've got a different mental image of what natural order is. That's the article. It's mostly crap. This is you again, Matt, right? Um, Eddie did add when he sent the link, quote, so there are apparently panels lifted from the comics in the movies, but I'm not sure how deep a dive the above is. Someone, not me, mind you, may want to look at fan websites for the movie or Google search fan forums and discussions about the movies where they probably have already done some of the comparisons. Or look at websites of the cinematographer slash director slash storyboard artist for the movies, unquote. And then, Matt, you say, I second the quote, not me, unquote. Reading 40-year-old comics to then compare panels in them to scenes in movies that I'd have to watch again. And I note the have to included there to see what lines up and where might sound like fun to somebody, but I ain't that somebody. Okay, I was misconstruing that. I have this mental image of all genre things, whether it's the X-Men movies, Indiana Jones, Star Wars, all Transformers, all of that stuff is over there, and I was going, okay, for people who are over there, I'm picturing that this would be a fun thing. But as you say, parenthetically, I only own a thin collection of the 2 issues of Days of Future Past that I could conceivably compare to the movie. But having read the one and watched the other, I know that the differences between the 2 are greater than any possible similarities. Right. Um, So we've got that problem, which I didn't see as an inherent problem when I started talking about all this, not having seen any of the movies. I did see the first X-Men movie, but I remember absolutely nothing about it. Um, it's it doesn't sound like anybody's idea of a good time. Uh, Here's the feedback the previous posts of your notes have gotten. On the 5/28/26 update, Steve said, am I reading this correctly? Dave is going to ask the women who are part of the tour book to provide him/AV/Waverly with wedding pictures because he believes that may help push sales to the casual female customer at bookstores. The old ship ain't sunk yet, but it's listening to port rather precariously. Yeah, Steve, I can definitely see your point on that. Um, it's well, there's also the problem of I didn't know how much Waverly Press was going to be involved in this. So I was basically saying, well, okay, Dagan is definitely a lawyer-driven guy, so it would involve him contacting people, women that would be covered in the tour book, and seeing if this was possible. That this was one of those trying to find things that are not absolutely horrible and fraught with tension, which, as someone who is not on the internet and doesn't have a cell phone, I'm afraid I have to say, well, apart from me, everything else seems to be in that category. So let's see if we can find something that is at the other end of the scale from everyone else's beside me perceived reality, which is wedding pictures are nice, happy things. People look at wedding photographs and go, "Oh, that's nice. That's a nice wedding dress. He looks really good. They look very happy." Like I say, I'm someone who's not on the internet. I don't have a cell phone, and I read 4 or 5 newspapers. So it's like I understand. What I'm talking about there is at a scale of like 0 or 1, and everybody else is living at 25 on a scale of 1 to 10. So the old ship ain't stuck yet, but it's listening to port rather precariously. I'll just throw that right back at you in terms of you just described my perception of what most people call reality in this day and age. An anonymous said, "I agree with Steve. Is this thing ever even going to reach bookstores? Hell, I'd imagine most of us would prefer a tour book of Dave's rock star days, maybe 84 to 90 or 86 to 96, when he seemed to have hotter girlfriends of the week than Jerry Seinfeld." Okay, that's okay. That's a perception of me as Lenny Henry, now Sir Lenny Henry, said. When I told him that I was celibate, but you're a rock star, and it's like that was never the case. It's an interesting perception, and it would that had worked. It pays to advertise, and indescribably attractive women would treat me as a rock star. Never came close to that. On round 3 of your notes, posted June 6th. Okay, so June 6th would have been the last time that I did this in terms of 82 tour book. Quote, everybody, unquote, said. Okay, and then instead of everybody is in quotation marks, so I don't understand what that means. Maybe I'm just being stupid here. Anonymous said, "Hey, is the Chris Warner who sends Dave all the books the same Chris W. from the Cerebus Yahoo group?" Yes, he is. Wasn't he the same Chris who came up with the big timeline that showed all the overlaps between the X-Men and Cerebus storylines in the Claremont days? That's ringing a very, very distant bell. I remember the first writing of Chris Warner's that I read was a printout from the Yahoo News group. And I remember reading it and going, well, that was fascinating. It was like 12, 14 pages long or something like that. And it's like, there's stuff that I didn't know a thing about, and a very, very interesting take on it. So Anonymous, I'm thinking, yeah, that could possibly lead to something that applies to what we're doing here. I don't know if it does, and I don't know. Chris Warner probably visits a moment of Cerebus once every 6 or 7 months. It would be interesting to get his response to that. Are we talking about anything related to the the big timeline that Anonymous is talking about. Maybe he could help. Maybe he could. I think maybe Jeff Tundis was into X-Men action figures. Uh, okay, no, we were definitely not talking about X-Men action figures here. So I will go with, the Chris Warner angle might link to something that we're trying to do here, but not necessarily. But maybe someone should tell Dave that a lot of movie posters are just generic. Big Pics of the Stars movie posters. They didn't even use the iconic comic cover for Days of Future Past. The main one had Wolverine and then old and young Magneto / Professor X, because that's who the biggest stars are. Hell, Alan Cumming is probably the most famous X-Men actor returning for Doomsday, which will probably be reflected in the marketing, even though people like Cyclops are more important to the X-Men. Okay, I understood very little of that, but yes, definitely we've got a disconnect in terms of from my movie-going days, which is way back in the last century. A movie had a movie poster that was associated with the movie. What you're saying, that definitely rings a bell with the New Mutants Google images that I saw, where I'm going, okay, I need a quick and dirty New Mutants movie poster download, screen capture, that I can just say, here, find a good quality copy of this online, and this is what we're talking about. So yes, that would definitely cause a problem that I was not aware of, that movie poster, there isn't a movie poster for any movies now. There are just dozens and dozens and dozens of movie posters, and they're not intended to be outside of theaters, or they are intended, one of them is intended to be outside of theaters, but most of them are online, and that's just how many pages of Google image search can we occupy so that we can get our movie publicized? Sounds like to me. Steve said, or we could just let Dave know that this makes no sense whatsoever, doesn't belong in the book, is little more than flogging an already dead horse, seems important to him, but thoroughly misses the perhaps 150 Cerebus fans who simply want to read the damned thing. Who cares at all about X-Men movies in the Cerebus book? That's not why we're here. The last cord tethering me to this joy of my youth is fraying fast. Steve, we're not trying to fray your cord, tethering you to whatever this is, Steve. Trust me on that. We are genuinely occupying. I'm definitely occupying a good chunk of my life on trying to figure out how to make a viable 1982 tour book in 2026, where the reality of publishing has changed and is dramatically worsening in terms of how much it costs to produce a book and how much it costs to get the book to the people, particularly if there's only 150 people. I think Dagan has a much better track record than that. It's like, I can only sell to about 100 Cerebus fans, and Dagan can sell to, my perception is like 300, 400 Cerebus fans who won't buy stuff from Dave Sim, but they will buy it from Dagan, because they just vehemently object to Dave Sim, but they don't vehemently object to Dagan. Okay, John G said, beware of, quote, paralysis by analysis with the X-Men stuff. As a fan, I would like to see the 82 tour diary actually get completed at some point so I can purchase it and read it. That's definitely what we're working on. But again, we're talking about producing a book in 2027. I did ballpark this when we started on this like 6 months ago, and said this is probably going to take about 2 years. That was a conservative guess on my part. And that's one of the baked in problems is that what is the book publishing world, even Kickstarter book publishing, going to look like in 2027 as opposed to 2026? And it's like, I wouldn't even hazard a guess on that. We could find out that everything that we're talking about here and everything that we're doing here is a complete waste of time because X thing, to coin a term, X thing happened in January 2027 that just made all of this completely impossible. We have no idea what it is, but here it is, it happened, and okay, we've all completely wasted our time from the get-go. Matt O'Hara said, so Dave's intended audience for the 1982 tour book is the Venn diagram intersection of people who are big fans of X-Men movies. No, that's not what I was talking about. I was talking about real world people who are not big fans of X-Men movies. People where that's their only awareness of comic books is if you say X-Men, then they go, oh, okay, the Marvel movies. I know that one. I know X-Men, I know Spider-Man, I know Iron Man. That would be your average person in the street. But never realized they were based on comic books and people who love reading box office statistics, but haven't figured out how to find this information on the internet within seconds. No, I'm not talking about people who love reading box office statistics. I'm talking about, it's interesting, I think inherently interesting to civilians, non-comics people, that a movie generated $1 billion. I mean, leave aside the fact that it's a Marvel movie. Really, only Marvel movies gross $1 billion. There's not a lot of competition there. So that I'm thinking is well, okay. One of the future anonymouses gets into that. So we'll as Teddy Kennedy said, we'll drive off that bridge when we come to it. But no, that's not what I'm saying. You're skewing what I am saying in the direction of this is crazy of what this is what you're suggesting. No, I agree it's crazy, but it's not what I'm suggesting. Anonymous said, if you Google, quote, Chris Claremont influence on X-Men movies, unquote, a few YouTube videos come up. Okay. Was it Claremont who came up with the mutant/gay analogy? X2, probably the best X movie. Okay, we get into problems there because I'm completely at sea on this. Is that a consensus that X2 was the best X-Men movie? Because that your point hinges on that being the best one. Is big on that. The mutant/gay analogy. But I assumed Marvel was pretty closeted back in the day. I don't know if I would describe Marvel as closeted. If Marvel isn't gay, does that mean that they're closeted? And I think we're having trouble discussing something sensibly if that's what you're saying is okay. This is the foundation of this. I remember reading that John Byrne wanted to have North Star be gay way back in 1979, but he didn't actually come out until the 90s. There's obvious stuff like Dark Phoenix you could attribute to Claremont, but panel by panel is a big ask. That's not sounding familiar to me. That's definitely not the John Byrne that I knew. That John Byrne wanted North Star to be gay back in 1979. Um, that really sounds more like a Chris Claremont thing to me. Not wanting to be. I mean, here we are again. Now we're going from having a nice little polite discussion to, okay, now you're being homophobic. It's like, no, I don't think I'm being homophobic saying I don't think the John Byrne that I knew back in 1979 would have been the guy going, hey, Jim Shooter, Chris Claremont, let's make North Star gay. So we'll just have to leave that one aside for the moment. Anonymous said, another anonymous, great shout on the old Yahoo group. I know some members have sadly passed away, but hopefully guys like Rick and Larry or it's Rain Mandu, not Rain Madu, right, are still around. Are there not maybe some X-Men Facebook groups that could help? That's an idea. I mean, it's except I think we're going to get into the problem there again, where okay, my interest in it is particularly Bill Sienkiewicz's work on New Mutants that became the Demon Bear part of the New Mutants movie, because it's gorgeous stuff. As a matter of fact, I was searching through my Heritage catalogs, looking for Rip Kirby strips from the current storyline that I'm doing, which is The Play's the Thing. And interestingly enough, I've only got one printout of a Rip Kirby strip from that entire storyline, although there's another one in the Flash Gordon book that has a lot of artwork in it. So as far as I know, there's a reasonably lengthy, but short as far as Rip Kirby goes, storyline. There's only two existent strips from that storyline, which is going to make my doing this part of the Strange Death of Alex Raymond difficult. Anyway, looking through the Heritage catalogs, and I found one platinum catalog, and it had a great Demon Bear page in it. And I went, okay, pull that one out, post-it note it for Rolly. I think we will be able to get a really good copy of this because it was in a Heritage auction. It is Demon Bear, and with a screen capture of any of the Demon Bear special effects in New Mutants. Again, you're not going to have to worry about something looks funny about that screen capture. It's a special effect, so it'll be very forgiving in a book, and I think you would have any number of Demon Bear images from the New Mutants movie that you could just juxtapose with this page. So I've got a prayer time coming up right now. It's 20 to 12. I'm going to go back out and tell Rolly, who is redesigning Camp David from the ground up. Here's this image. Can you email the specs to Matt Dow so he can download it himself from Heritage auctions. Or if they're not that busy at Studio Comics Press today, can you get them to find the digital copy of this and just go, okay, this is This is really where a lot of Dave Sim's motivation of having comic pages juxtaposed with screen captures comes from. If we can find something in this ultimate sweet spot, wouldn't that make a great page making the point in the 1982 tour book? So like I say, I'm going for a prayer time. That's 48 minutes. And we're on page 17 of 28. So I think we're starting to find out just what a mission impossible this whole thing is.
Cerebus was the name of the magazine. Her sister and brother provided the aardvark and Vanaheim of the publishing company's name when they realized that Cerebus had been misspelled and ad-libbed that Cerebus was the name of the aardvark mascot cartoon, Cerebus the aardvark. It had a nice ring to it.